For the last 3 years, rent prices across America did something nobody thought was possible, and landlords are hitting the panic button in 2025. Make sure you hit that subscribe button for more deep dives into America's groups. Hit Vegas, and it hit hard and fast. The population shot up by 18% as families looked for more space, and businesses tried to escape high taxes, while retirees chased the sun. New suburbs sprawled out across the desert, and family-friendly entertainment started popping up beyond the casinos. The Raiders Stadium and the NHL's Golden Knights helped build a real sports culture. But then, 2025 was a major reality check. Tourism never quite bounced back, construction costs went through the roof, and the entertainment industry was really struggling. Post-pandemic travel habits had changed for good. Tourism was down 22%, and convention cancellations were piling up. A lot of business conventions went virtual, and people just weren't spending as much on entertainment. The service industry jobs, which are the lifeblood of Vegas, just couldn't keep up with the rising rent. On top of that, water restrictions began threatening any new expansion into the desert, with Lake Mead hitting critically low levels. Casinos started offering rental discounts, free show tickets, and dining credits, anything to get people into empty units near the Strip. But the water crisis raised some serious questions about whether a city in the desert is even sustainable. Vegas learned a very tough lesson: shifting economy. Now, let's get right into it. Coming in at number 10 is Austin, Texas. You can't build a permanent city on the back of temporary entertainment. Number 4, Portland, Oregon. For a long time, Portland's quirky vibe was its biggest asset. That Keep Portland Weird slogan drove rent sky high until being weird just got too expensive. The hipster paradise turned into an economic exodus. A 12% rent drop was a reality check that creativity alone doesn't pay the bills. Between 2018 and 2023, Portland was the place to be for the creative class and tech workers spilling over from Seattle. With Nike expanding, Intel growing, and a thriving startup scene, tech jobs shot up by 31%. Its food truck culture became world famous. It was the craft beer capital, with an art scene that could give Brooklyn a run for its money. Keep Portland Weird became a global brand. Remote workers loved its unique character more than pure convenience. But by 2025, weird had gotten expensive, and expensive started to feel unsafe, which led to a mass exodus. Growing concerns about public safety were killing the city's cultural vibe. Downtown businesses were boarding up their windows, and tech workers started moving away. The city's creative economy just couldn't survive. Austin's rise to the top was legendary, and now its fall is just as dramatic. They're going from Silicon Hills to Ghost Hills, when potential customers were too scared to even visit. The pipeline of new talent dried up as more families opted for the suburbs. You've got landlords offering free parking, amenities for pets, and even partnerships with local breweries and art studios. But the big tech companies are demanding a return to the office, which is killing the whole remote work advantage. Portland learned the hard way that a cool culture doesn't pay the bills when safety goes out the window. Even keeping it weird needs a foundation of security. The mystery in the Pacific Northwest is getting deeper. But the East Coast has an even bigger story to tell. Coming in at number 3 is Seattle, Washington. Everyone thought Seattle's tech empire was bulletproof, with Amazon, Microsoft, and Boeing creating what seemed like untouchable demand. How did the Emerald City turn into a city of ghost towers? We're seeing a 16% rent crash as even these tech giants are starting to show cracks. Between 2015 and 2022, Seattle became the global tech capital outside of Silicon Valley. All thanks to Amazon's explosive growth and Microsoft's dominance in cloud computing. The whole startup ecosystem was booming, and tech job growth surged by 45%. The South Lake Union neighborhood transformed from, we're talking about a 14% collapse in rent year over year, which is the steepest drop in the entire Sunbelt. an old industrial wasteland into a gleaming tech corridor. Glass towers shot up like modern-day cathedrals. With average tech salaries at $180,000, a $3,000 rent seemed pretty reasonable. Bidding wars were just normal. The Amazon effect rippled through absolutely everything. From Boeing's aerospace industry and Starbucks global headquarters to all the startup unicorns. It really felt like Seattle was unstoppable. But 2025 brought a very humbling reality check. With tech layoffs and the permanent shift to remote work, the city's appeal started to fade, and the tech bubble bursting hit Seattle the hardest. Amazon got rid of 18,000 jobs, and Microsoft cut 10,000. Remote work completely killed the energy downtown. Sure, commute times improved, but that's because nobody was commuting. Restaurants, shops, and local services just collapsed. The psychological shift for the city was devastating. The pandemic changed how people live and work, and Seattle's prestige just couldn't compete with smaller, more balanced cities. The migration out. Wasn't a huge flood, but it was relentless. Every family that leaves takes a piece of the city's stability with them. Downtown vacancy hit 31%, which is the highest ever recorded. Those gleaming towers that were once testaments to innovation now stand half empty. From 2020 to 2023, Austin blew up as America's new tech mecca, with remote workers pouring in from California, reflecting the clouds of an uncertain future. Now, tenants are the ones negotiating for flexible leases and lower prices. The entire power dynamic has completely flipped. The Seattle skyline still looks beautiful in the mist, but underneath it all, there's a real fragility. The cracks you're seeing aren't from earthquakes. They're from an economy learning that even tech dreams have their limits. The Pacific Northwest is definitely falling, but it's nothing compared to California's collapse. And at number 2, we have San Francisco, California. If any city currently defines the word collapse, it's San Francisco. It's gone from the crown jewel of innovation to something almost unrecognizable. We're talking a 15% crash in rents, with vacancy rates shattering every single record. Those once untouchable towers are now practically begging for tenants at $3,000 a month with incentives. For decades, San Francisco was the heartbeat of American innovation. I mean, Google, Facebook, Twitter, Uber, just about every world-changing startup got its start here. Between 2010 and 2022, venture capital just flooded into Silicon Valley. The tech market cap hit $2.3 trillion. There were IPO celebrations every week, and $200,000 starting salaries were the norm. Venture capital flooding the city, and billion-dollar startups popping up like wildflowers. The city basically branded itself. Housing became more of an investment vehicle than a place to live. You had $4,000 studios with 12-month wait lists, and foreign billionaires snapping up towers without even seeing them. The demand from tech workers made it feel like no price was too high. It was the city that set the housing price floor for the whole country. But 2025 brought a total collapse. The tech exodus never turned around, and remote work just became a permanent thing. That tech exodus hit 87,000 workers, leaving downtown 40% empty. It was a perfect storm of problems. Tech layoffs, a surge in crime, a collapse in quality of life, and a regulatory nightmare. Downtown became a canyon of quiet glass towers. Entire city blocks turned into ghost corridors. For lease signs just blended into the scenery. On top of that, property taxes, maintenance, and insurance doubled, completely wiping out profits. Investors were trapped, unable to refinance without losing millions. And beyond the money, there's the perception. Crime, homelessness, and all the dysfunction drove renters away in droves. The restaurants, boutiques, and galleries that gave the city its charm are now closing up shop. It's leaving a cultural vacuum where that unique character once was, as the new Silicon Valley. And for a little while, it really lived up to the hype. You had cranes filling the downtown skyline. Even its celebrated identity as a tech hub is fading, as companies ditch their headquarters for cheaper cities. Landlords who once flaunted their passive income are now practically begging for tenants. The irony is haunting. The same city that set the housing price floor is now showing everyone just how far the market can actually fall. San Francisco's decline isn't a temporary dip, it's a fundamental shift. But even this pales in comparison to our number one pick. Number 1, New York City. And at the top spot, the empire is finally showing its cracks. The untouchable is taking a fall, a 12% crash in Manhattan, and a 15% collapse in Brooklyn and Queens. For generations, New York's rental market was absolutely bulletproof. It didn't matter what the economy was doing or what crisis hit. Demand always bounced back. The empire of rent is finally hitting its ceiling. For 150 years, New York was synonymous with opportunity. From Ellis Island to Silicon Alley, every generation came here to chase their American dream. Between 2010 and 2023, international money just poured into Manhattan. Global capital investment reached $47 billion a year, 24/7, with luxury towers like the Independent and 70 Rainey seeming to sprout up overnight. Landlords couldn't. Billionaire's Row shot up over Central Park. $100 million penthouses were sold before the buildings were even finished. Finance ran the world, media shaped the culture, and fashion set all the trends. Young professionals would pay anything for a Manhattan studio because being there meant everything. International buyers, who were once the secret engine of the real estate machine, basically treated Manhattan like a global safe deposit box. International buyers accounted for 23% of luxury purchases. But 2025 brought the unthinkable. Even New York has its limits. A perfect storm is ripping apart the very foundation of demand. Corporate layoffs in finance, media, and tech are wearing down the renter base that once made the city so resilient. Wall Street is shedding jobs, the media industry is shrinking, and startup funding has all but dried up. The high-paying professional class is simply vanishing. Think about Goldman Sachs' massive cuts, media companies closing their doors, and tech startups going under. International buyers pulled back with all the global instability and tax hikes. The super wealthy are cutting back for the first time in recent memory. Jack up the rent fast enough. It got so crazy that 12-month waitlists for an apartment became the norm. Luxury rentals on Billionaire's Row are getting their prices slashed by hundreds of thousands. Meanwhile, owners of mid-market buildings are facing tough refinancing deals are just crushing cash flow. And those younger professionals who used to pay whatever it took, well, they're heading out to places like Charlotte, Nashville, and Philadelphia. The culture's still here, but fewer people can afford a ticket to the show. For the first time in decades, renters are the ones in the driver's seat. Landlords are scrambling to offer all sorts of perks. You're seeing it everywhere. Free months of rent, no security deposits, even luxury upgrades. Anything just to get tenants in the door. Developers who bet on an endless stream of money are now watching their towers look out over half-empty streets. For the smaller landlords, the whispers of foreclosure have started. The numbers just don't add up anymore. The energy that defined New York for a century is slowly scattering to hungrier, more affordable cities. New York's decline isn't some big dramatic event. It's more of a slow, steady squeeze as the city learns its own limits. For the first time in recent memory, even die-hard New Yorkers are admitting the unthinkable. The rental empire has finally hit its ceiling. And when New York struggles, but here in 2025, that fever dream is over, and the crash has been hard. The average rent has plummeted 14% year over year. The rest of America feels it. The financial capital, the cultural heartbeat, the gateway to the world. They're all starting to show some cracks. The skyline still sparkles, but underneath, there's a new reality. It's where ambition has finally met exhaustion. The city that never sleeps is finally taking a pause, even if it's just for a moment, to catch its breath. All across the United States, a quiet revolution is taking place. For the first time in more than a decade, tenants are finally back in control. The era of bidding wars, applying for places sight unseen, and ruthless rent hikes is coming to an end. It's being replaced by empty apartments, falling prices, and landlords who are getting desperate. From the tech exodus in Austin to New York's empire showing cracks, a clear pattern is emerging. This isn't just a simple price correction either. It's a major cultural shift. Millions of people are questioning if renting, or even owning, makes sense anymore, when costs keep rising faster than their paychecks. Developers built luxury towers, but renters just wanted a livable space. Investors were chasing big returns, while families just needed some stability. Well, now the day of reckoning has come. It turns out housing markets can't defy gravity forever. They skyrocketed higher and faster than any time in modern history. We saw 60% increases, overnight bidding wars, and it absolutely wrecked families. Now, thousands of those shiny new apartments that were built during the boom are sitting half empty. Some cities will bounce back, while others are going to shrink. But everywhere, the lesson is the same. Even real estate empires have their limits. What happens next is going to completely reshape the map of America. Power is flowing from the coasts to the heartland, from luxury to livability, and from speculation to sustainability. This rental revolution is really just getting started. You've been watching Discover the Nation, your go-to source for cinematic deep dives into America's biggest transformations. If you found this breakdown eye-opening, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and share this video, because what's going on in the rental market right now is just the beginning of a huge economic shift. The numbers are telling the story, and that story is far from over. For the first time in a generation, the American dream of having an affordable place to live might actually be within reach again. But that's only if we can learn from the collapse that's happening as we speak. The cities that adapt are the ones that will thrive. Their rooftop pools eerily silent. And the reason for all this? The tech bubble didn't just pop. It burst with the force of a bomb. The ones that don't will become cautionary tales. As always, thanks for watching. And we'll see you in our next look at the forces that are truly changing America. Until then, keep exploring what's really going on in this country, one story at a time. The rental wars are a total game changer, and you've just had a front row seat to economic history in the making. The whole empire built on rent is starting to fall, and from its ashes, a new American housing market is taking shape. One where renters, finally, have some real power, where landlords have to compete fairly, and where the dream of an affordable home can become a reality again. This is the moment generations of renters have been hoping for. The tables are finally turning, and the future of American housing is being decided right now. Remember to hit that. Tech giants like Meta, Oracle, and Tesla completely gutted Austin's base of high-income renters. Subscribe button and tap the notification bell, because the economic shift we're watching is only just getting started. More cities are going to follow suit. New trends are going to pop up, and we'll be right here to cover every twist and turn of what might be the biggest economic story of our time. Thanks for joining us on this look into the collapse of America's rental empire. Keep watching, keep learning, and above all, keep discovering the nation that's changing right before our eyes. From coast to coast, the signs are popping up everywhere. Empty luxury towers, landlords offering crazy deals, and families finally finding homes they can actually afford. This is way more than a market correction. It's a massive shift in our society. Just like that, 67,000 tech jobs disappeared. And those developers who used to brag about their 12-month wait lists, the generation that was priced out of the housing market is finally getting a foot in the door. Cities that became too expensive for teachers, nurses, and firefighters might finally welcome them back. The American dream, after taking a beating from decades of speculation, is starting to show signs of life. But big changes are always messy, and this housing shakeup is no different. Fortunes built on the idea that rents only go up are now crumbling. Investment strategies, worth billions of dollars, are failing. The old playbook just doesn't work anymore. In its place, a new reality is taking shape. One with tenants who have real bargaining power. Landlords are being forced to compete on quality, and markets are getting back to basics, instead of being driven by speculation. This is what a fair housing market really looks like. The question isn't whether this change is going to keep happening. The real question is, well, now they're offering all kinds of desperate deals, like 3 months of free rent, no security deposits. Which cities will get on board, and which ones will fight it to the very end? History is being written right now in vacant apartments and falling rent prices. The massive rental market is starting to crack, and you can feel the shockwaves from the penthouses in Miami all the way to studios in Manhattan. A major shift has begun. The only question that remains is, which side of this change will you be on when the dust finally settles? Thanks for tuning in to Discover the Nation. Until next time, keep a close watch on the changing American landscape. After all, the story of our cities is the story of our nation, and that story is being completely rewritten as we speak, especially over the last 2 years. And they're even throwing in things like concert tickets just to get people in the door. The city that was once called Silicon Hills, well, that nickname now feels like a cruel joke. If you look at downtown towers like the Independent and 70 Rainey, their vacancy rates have shot up to a 10-year high of 23%. And over in East Austin, which was once the heart of the city's whole creative scene, landlords are now slashing rents left and right just to stay competitive. For the landlords who got in over their heads, the ones who bought up luxury condos at peak prices, thinking the boom would never end, but now, in 2025, that empire is crashing down, and the numbers are going to blow your mind. Well, their profits are completely gone. Any returns they hoped for have vanished, crushed under the weight of high-interest loans and tenants that are nowhere to be found. But for renters, this is the break they've been waiting for. A city that got crazy expensive almost overnight is finally starting to crack. The lesson from Austin is pretty clear. The city that shot up the fastest is coming down just as hard, and the shockwaves are hitting the entire Sunbelt. But if you think that's something, wait till you hear about Miami. Number 9, Miami, Florida. Miami's rental market didn't just boom, it went into overdrive. It went from a crypto paradise to a financial nightmare, with an 11% drop in rent and vacancies popping up everywhere. It was all fueled by people leaving big cities during the pandemic, a flood of crypto money, and international investors looking for a piece of the good life. The city quickly turned into a playground for the super rich and the work-from-home crowd. Between 2020 and 2022, rents just skyrocketed by over 60%, pushing a lot of the local folks out and turning every downtown high-rise into a monument to living large. The median rent shot up from $2,100 to $3,360 in just 2 years, all the way from Miami's billionaire playgrounds to New York's supposedly untouchable towers. Landlords are in a full-blown panic. But now, in 2025, the party's over, and there's no denying the crash. Average rents have dropped 11% from last year. And you're seeing for rent signs all over Brickell, downtown, and Miami Beach. Those super hyped luxury towers, the ones with the amazing ocean views and infinity pools, are now advertising things like free parking, no security deposit, and even $2,000 gift cards just to get people in the door. And it's not just that fewer people want to rent. Rising costs are absolutely killing landlords' profits. Insurance rates have tripled after all the hurricane damage, leaving a lot of property owners in the red. On top of that, HOA fees have gone through the roof as buildings rush to comply with Florida's new safety laws. We're talking $50,000 special assessments that are just wiping out owners. The bottom line? Thousands of investors are bleeding money every single month. For a lot of them, the game is already over. Condos that were once going for $900,000 are now selling for $700,000. Or they're just sitting on the market, completely unsold. And the Airbnb hosts who were making a killing on tourists are now getting out of the business. Rents are down 15%, vacancies are through the roof, and you can find desperate deals everywhere, with things like 3 months of free rent becoming standard. As tourism slows down and the cost of upkeep eats away at any profit they might make. Even the foreign investors, who have been Miami's financial safety net for years, are starting to pull out, spooked by the increasing risk of major storms and these never-ending special assessments. Sure, the view from a high-rise still looks incredible. That turquoise water, the whole skyline sparkling in the sun. But behind all that glamour, the numbers just don't add up anymore. It's a classic cautionary tale from Miami. When the price of luxury gets completely disconnected from reality, even paradise can fall apart. All right, number 8 on our list. Atlanta, Georgia. Now, Atlanta was supposed to be a different story. The safe bet in the South. You had a booming job market, housing was actually affordable, and people were moving there in droves. From both coasts, which made it a developer's dream. So, they all rushed in, pouring billions of dollars into new apartment buildings all the way from Midtown to Sandy Springs. Between 2021 and 2024, over 50,000 new units came onto the market, which was way more than the city could handle. That whole build it and they will come philosophy. Today we're counting down the top 10 cities where this rental bubble is bursting the hardest. Created a total feeding frenzy. But now, here in 2025, that boom has officially turned into a bust. Rents have dropped 9% compared to last year. More places are sitting empty, and developers are starting to panic. Those new high-rises that used to fill up instantly are now half vacant. But the problem is bigger than just too many buildings. People's paychecks have stalled while inflation is taking a huge bite out of their budgets. Companies are tightening their belts, and it's hitting the job market hard. Landlords are now offering 3 months of free rent, free parking, and 0 security deposits. Pretty much anything to get tenants back in the door. The highways are still packed, but people's bank accounts just can't keep up with the costs. Atlanta had to learn a tough lesson. Even a sure thing can have too much supply. Just because you build it doesn't mean they'll rent it. But that's nothing compared to what's going down in Phoenix. Number 7. Phoenix, Arizona. The growth in Phoenix was relentless, sprawling across and you'll want to stick around for number 1 because what's going on there is going to completely change how you think about vast desert, like an economic wildfire, turning from a Sunbelt success story into a climate cautionary tale. Rents collapsed by 8% as reality hit the desert. Between 2020 and 2023, Phoenix was the American dream, affordable homes, no state income tax, and endless sunshine. People poured in from California, looking for more space and a lower cost of living. Master-planned communities were popping up by the hour. You had luxury amenities and resort-style living for just a fraction of the price on the coast. The population boomed by 15%, but 2025 was a harsh wake-up call, bringing record heat waves, water restrictions, and a strained infrastructure. They saw record-breaking 129-degree heat. AC bills were averaging $400 a month. The reason? Climate change is making desert living unsustainable, with 115-degree days lasting for weeks. They even banned refilling swimming pools. Golf courses started turning brown. The entire infrastructure began to fail under the climate pressure. Rolling blackouts became just a part of daily life. Landlords can't deal with the utility costs, and renters are fleeing back to milder climates. The American housing market. This is basically economic warfare. And for the first time in a decade, it looks like renters are actually winning. Phoenix learned what the indigenous people there have always known. The desert has its limits. Cheap rent means nothing when the climate starts to fight back. But Denver's mountain-high fall is what really shocked everyone. Number 6, Denver, Colorado. Denver's rise was like the Colorado gold rush all over again. It had legal cannabis, an outdoor paradise, and a major tech boom. But those mile-high dreams came with mile-high costs. Now this playground for America is facing a 10% rental reality check. Between 2019 and 2024, Denver became a total mecca for millennials. With legal weed, world-class skiing, and the freedom of remote work, the cannabis industry exploded to $2.2 billion. Tech companies moved there to attract top talent. It was the craft brewery capital, a paradise for outdoor gear lovers, with progressive politics. It was the perfect storm for young professionals to move in. But in 2025, reality hit hard. The cannabis market was oversaturated. Tech layoffs were piling up, and the cost of living was just crushing people's dreams. The cannabis gold rush turned into a nightmare of oversupply. Prices crashed by 60%. You're watching Discover the Nation, and today we are pulling back the curtain on the cities where rent prices are collapsing, and dispensaries were closing every week. The tech layoffs sent ripples through the whole economy, and the remote work advantage began to fade. Vanished once everyone started working remotely. Landlords were even offering perks like ski lift tickets and credits at local breweries, and discounts on hiking gear, basically anything tied to the mountain lifestyle. But young professionals were opting for cheaper mountain towns or just leaving Colorado altogether. The average rent fell from $1,800 down to $1,620. Denver learned the hard way that lifestyle alone doesn't pay the rent. Even paradise needs a solid economy to survive. But that was nothing compared to what went down in Las Vegas. Number 5, Las Vegas, Nevada. Vegas gambled everything on endless growth, and for once, the house actually lost. Sin City went from boomtown to bust, with a 13% drop in rent, as its ultimate gamble completely backfired. Between 2020 and 2024, Vegas was becoming more than just an entertainment hub. It was turning into a real home. With no state income tax, fairly affordable living, and that 24/7 energy, the California exodus